Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. This is no ordinary Ram ProMaster van. This is a fully Tesla powered electric van. You can buy this from Maxwell Vehicles. So what I want to do is take you on a quick history lesson as to what Maxwell is, let you know what's going on over there. It's really a company we haven't covered yet, and they're taking, I think, a really interesting approach to building out electric sort of commercial vans like this. Obviously, you can go everything from a box on the back to a RV build. They're actually going to have an RV build we can take a look at later in this video, but they've handed us the keys to this thing. No, this is keys to a Volvo. They've handed us, oh, the keys are in it. They've handed us the keys to this thing and said, you know, do whatever you want with it. Go charge it, go drive it. And I'm going to walk you through its full layout. It's got a Model 3 performance motor. It's got a Model 3 battery pack, the 82 kilowatt hour version, and you can buy this directly from them. Just really cool stuff. So we've driven a few electric, medium, and heavy-duty commercial vehicles, and everyone seems to take a little bit of a different idea, different strategy when building out their vehicles. Some build them out on the Ford chassis, Lightning e-motors. We've driven their Transit before, for example. But one thing is for sure is everyone pretty much buys batteries in from a supplier, buys a motor from, let's say, Danfoss or UQM, which I believe Danfoss owns them now, or one of these places, and they hodgepodge together all these components to build their powertrain system. What Maxwell decided was, like, if we're just going to hodgepodge stuff together, why not buy it from the best? And that's exactly what they're doing. They're actually getting Model 3 and Model Y battery packs and motors and like controllers and thermal systems, and basically pulling that all out of the cars and into a van. Now, few questions when it comes to this. I want to talk about like how they're sourcing their components and things, but Maxwell's really focused on the circular round trip sustainability economy rather than buying new batteries from suppliers that definitely aren't coming from, you know, resource traced places in a lot of cases. And definitely rather than creating new motors, they're literally taking either salvage cars, crashed cars, cars that have been sold inexpensively, and they're buying up all these Model 3s and Ys and the subcomponents and putting them here. So I want to address some concerns that I have about that, but I think overall it's pretty neat. So let's start with the technology, the range, the specs, everything like that. First of all, you can have two different charging options. You can have an AC only charging option, which actually, before we show that part, I don't know if it's here. Yeah, this one's locked off. But the AC charging option, oh no, never mind. It's just an empty hole, would be charging here. It's just a J1772 port. And Maxwell has, I don't know, about 100 of these out there. They have, you know, fleets that are using them and stuff. And more and more. IKEA just bought a whole bunch from them. Some other big names I can't remember offhand, but like real legit companies are like totally in on this because they've been testing them and have been finding them to be some of the most reliable small vans that they're using that are electric. And that's no surprise because Tesla builds some of the best stuff out there. Model 3, Model Ys, you cannot kill them. We've tried, and we're trying on our Model 3. It's almost impossible. So they have an upcharge option, which is CCS charging. I think it's somewhere a few $1,000s to get it because they have to basically put this port in here, run new wiring, all this stuff, but it's fully integrated AC and DC charging. They actually use the Tesla onboard charger and control strategy for this, but rather than using the Tesla port, they put in a CCS port. Now, I wonder if they could actually keep the Tesla port. I got to ask them about that. That could be quite interesting if you were able to get the North American charging port on here. But at least for now, they're using CCS for everything, which is fine for a fleet because you're putting in your own chargers and very rarely will you need to DC charge them. We are going to take this over to an Electrify America station and see if it can DC charge. So the battery pack, you can choose two versions. You can get a standard range or a long range, same Model 3 battery pack. So I'm fairly certain you can do an LFP version. This is the long range with CCS charging. So it's the big boy version. And so 82 kilowatt hour, 250 kilowatt charging if you can find a CCS charger that'll give you that much. Most are 500 amp max. So Maxwell's like, well, we see 212, 215. Same thing you'd get with a Model 3 on a CCS adapter out in the wild. And so that's what they've seen on this. All the thermal systems are kept from Tesla. The control strategy, all of these things are carried over, but integrated really well into this. So what they actually do is they're keeping, and you can see they've nosed off a lot of the front of this because they don't need as much air requirement. They actually are keeping the same Tesla fan control, but they're utilizing the ProMaster's compressor, which is an upsized one, or their condenser from an upsized one from the Tesla vehicles. And they're also utilizing the radiator from this vehicle as well. So their cooling performance is almost better than Tesla. And they're like, we can't overheat these things. So that's really cool. And the AC system's fully integrated. That's one of the cool things I want to talk about as well. So before I tell you a little bit more, I guess I should tell you about the motor. Front wheel drive here. They're taking the Model 3, what is it, the 980, whatever the juicy rear motor is, and that's powering the front axle on this vehicle. They have an upgraded diff that they put in there, basically because you'd have so much front wheel drive inside wheel spin. They have a limited slip diff on them. And they also, because that's a pretty powerful motor to put on the front wheels, but we'll drive it, we'll see how it does. I'm gonna take it around. And they have their own custom half shafts that are uprated as well. So it's basically their front geometry, their front powertrain is basically Tesla motor, a little bit different diff. They're working on maybe even a slightly more aggressive gear reduction, which I think may not be a bad idea. I'll explain why in a little bit. They have, again, the Tesla battery pack. You can see that down the side here. They have their own brackets that get mounted in. It looks, you know, exposed here, but they've actually done crash testing on these, and they're even doing more. And what's so crazy is we were actually just touring where they build these things not far from Los Angeles. We're in, can't remember the name of the town, but just east of Los Angeles. What is it, Alyssa? Yeah, we don't know, but not far away. I'm sure you can look it up online. It's their new building. It's kind of nice. They actually had a van that was in a fleet that was in a serious front end collision. I mean, pushed all the way back. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But the crazier part of that is that fleet operator obviously wanted to replace that van. They literally bought another Ram ProMaster chassis, sent it to them, and they took the battery and the drivetrain out of the crashed van, make sure it was all okay, everything, and they're putting it in the new one. They're just transferring all the parts over. So really solid components here. And again, everything's proven. It's all Tesla stuff, which, like, why is no one else doing this? Because every time I drive one of these medium or heavy duty commercial vans, I'm like, well, the noise from the motor's loud, and the pedal calibration is weird, and like all these things. And I'm like, just take it from the best. They have the best thermal management, great charging, all this stuff. And that's what they're doing. And it's so smart. Really, really love the idea. Styling wise, you'd have no idea this is electric. And again, only the CCS optioned ones get this extra little port here. Otherwise, it would really look just like a normal van, except for the E-Pro badge. So again, you can really configure this however you want. I'm going to show you a few different configurations when we go over to their building. They have one that has a freezer in the back that runs off the high voltage battery pack and uses the Model 3 AC chiller. They're really utilizing as many Tesla components as possible, which I think is amazing, fully integrated. And then they have their RV builds, which for example, Winnebago just did an RV build on the Ford E-Transit. And like, that sounds really cool until you find out that they literally put the same build out that they do in their normal Transits into the E-Transit, which means they put their own batteries in there and their own solar, and the car, or I should say the chassis, the main battery of the vehicle and the house are separate systems. Not here. Here they have a van that they've built, and they're actually working with some van builders to partner with on this, which is really cool, to where basically the high voltage battery, the Model 3 battery, runs the entire system. The cooling system that cools the back is the same Model 3 chiller that chills the cabin. Same with heating. And it should just be a fully holistic, well-baked package, very Tesla style. And that's what they're doing here. So I am just so excited. I have a couple concerns about this, not necessarily concerns, but points I asked them that I'd like to bring up with you, because I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. If you were to bring your van to them, first of all, how does pricing work? Well, you're going to pay standard range or long range and slow or fast charging. They'll also have a solar option, I think 1400 watts of solar, full roof mounted, that goes with their own controller into the battery pack. Charges it to 90%, that way it doesn't really become out of balance, and then shuts off charging. The solar system can. I asked them, like, what happens if you, obviously they're buying used battery packs mostly from crashed cars or whatever. It's just like, is it luck of the draw degradation wise? And honestly, they and I agree with this. There's kind of like, there's not much variance in the battery packs. You get a few percent degradation over the first couple years, and then they kind of level out. And so, 10% degradation, 8% degradation, 5% degradation, that's kind of what they're finding in their battery packs. And honestly, I totally agree. So if you're a fleet manager, it may sound like you're spending a lot of money, $45,000 conversion starting price, I believe, and then it goes up from there. It sounds like you're spending a lot of money for used components. But I kind of argue with that theory. I had to go through this mentally just on the drive over. Like, a used Tesla battery and drivetrain and everything is way better than a new off-the-shelf components that haven't been nearly as well tested as this. And yes, it comes with a warranty. So I think it's 5-year or 3-year, 50,000 miles, something like that. It's a normal warranty that you get from Maxwell. And so they're warranting their components. Love to see that as well. And I'm sure you can check on the exact battery pack. Really, the battery packs haven't been the issue. And we've seen that out in the real world as well. You pretty much can't kill these things no matter what you do to them. The second component is, are there enough crashed cars, used cars to support a large production scale of this ePro idea? And the answer is, at least at the moment, yes. They've built, again, about 70, 75 vans so far. Once they get into the thousands of them every year, maybe they'll have to reevaluate. But even then, they're just like, you can just find batteries for these things everywhere. No one really knows what to do with them yet. The reverse engineering, which is the real unique selling point of these guys, they spent so much time reverse engineering the Model 3 and Y battery pack, motor architecture, thermal control systems. No one else really is doing that right now. They're like, a lot of people are trying, but they really are the only ones who can do it at this level, at least as far as I'm aware, which I think is really neat. Even down to integrating the ABS and traction control and using the motor to control some of the traction control stuff, just as it's done in Tesla. And I've done long Twitter posts about how epic that is. I can even feel a lot of that stuff still retaining here in this van, which we're going to take it for a drive and I'll show you. So the integration is what you get here with these guys. What they're kind of thinking is, as demand grows, as they want to build these things out, well, rather than doing a big production facility here in California, maybe they'll pop up small conversion shops in different parts of the country, find crashed cars locally there, source those parts to build those vans, and then sell that off to the end user. Really curious to see what you guys think about this. Ultimately, it does still feel a little bit weird that you're spending a lot of money to get used components. I wish Tesla would open up all of their equipment to be purchased new, of course, from superchargers to motors and battery packs. But ultimately, I think this is probably the best idea with what's available today so far. The pricing, to me, very reasonable. For a long range battery and CCS charging, again, all these are rough pricing. You'll have to go to them for an exact quote on your build, which they actually have a configurator on their website. But you're into this thing for 55 grand on top of the chassis. And to me, that's way less than most of these other conversion companies. I believe Lightning eMotors is going to be not quite double that, but close to it to do an electric conversion. And by the way, this can still charge at 200 kilowatts, has a lot more range, almost 200 miles of range, 150 miles of range. And, and again, you're getting all Tesla stuff, which sits well with me. That is a drivetrain and powertrain component that I feel like I can rely on, because I do every day. I own them as my personal vehicles. So love all that. Let's take it for a drive, talk a little bit more about it. I guess this particular conversion here, I think this one's being sold to IKEA is what we were told. So this will be an IKEA delivery van. Apparently they had vans that were from another supplier. They either burned down or broke, which sounds crazy. And they also had some of these and they've been the most reliable. So they're going all in on Maxwell at IKEA. Maybe it's at one location or others, I'm not totally sure. So let's jump inside. I'll show you how it's all integrated, because it looks like a stock van inside. You'd have no idea. And then we'll take it for a drive. Will you join me inside of the Maxwell ePro now? And first of all, I think I asked them, why are they converting the Pro Masters? Because out of all of the vans, they're the worst. I think the Transits probably drive the best. The Sprinters are definitely the most premium. And then this is kind of just like the cheap alternative, which is why you see so many. And I thought they had a pretty good answer. They were like, from a packaging standpoint, where they can put the battery pack, because it's front wheel drive and front motor, they don't have to run drive shafts or high voltage cabling back. They're able to unlock more space for their customers. And they're like, look, we're not like against Sprinter or against Transit in the future, but at least for now, this is the chassis they've chosen, and their customers haven't complained. So a lot of it works like Tesla. I actually have the ignition on right now because I was keeping the cabin air on. But since we're in here, I can just hit the brake pedal. A little chime comes up. They have their own sound profiles on here, which are pretty funny. And so now we're on. You just hit the brake, turns driver roll on, just like a Tesla. Again, you're interfacing through Dodge equipment here, basically Tesla stuff. So as I crank up the fan and put the AC on full, so AC on, just there I can hear the compressor kick in, and it'll actually ramp and change speed based off of the cooling request. So it's spinning up pretty hardcore, and it sounds just like a Tesla spinning up. Sounds amazing. It's amazing how well everything integrates here. So I'm very honestly blown away at the integration. If I look here at my gauges, there's actually not much that's different. They put their own faceplate on. So we have miles per hour. We have estimated range on the right. Right now we have about 45 miles of estimated range. And this is a little bit different than Tesla, where they're not using a rated range calculation. That's their baseline. And then they have like a plus, I don't know, 25% either side based off your last 30 miles of driving history. We are at, I don't know, 40% state of charge. We also have a temperature control, or a temperature gauge, but they were like, it's just like you can't overheat it. They've tried. So, okay, sounds cool. In terms of driving, again, foot on the brake turns the driver on. We're there. I can put it into drive. Electric parking brake opens up because, again, no parking pall on Tesla gear trains. I can move it to the left. And rather than switching gears here, fun noises, this controls all the regen. There's technically 8 levels, from no regen to a lot of regen. Now, there isn't one pedal driving right now, and a lot of that comes down to, in one pedal driving in Tesla, they blend in friction brakes right at the end, and they're actually using the brake booster from the Dodge here. They wanted to leave as much ProMaster stuff in here as they could. So traction control, stability control, ABS controller, a lot of the systems here, again, the infotainment, this is all Dodge. Speedometer, I believe, is all Dodge. That way they don't have to go through recertification for all of these things. But there's going to be an updated Dodge ProMaster or Ram ProMaster, excuse me, for 2023. And for that model, it should get one pedal driving, maybe through an over-the-air software update or something like that. These do get software updates. They are connected. You do have an app. I don't have the app right now, but I can show you a couple screenshots of it. You can see state of charge, range. You can set your charging limit. You can set your AC maximum current limitation, again, with the onboard charger, if you need to just turn it down for whatever reason, and it's all good there. So let's set it to max regen. There, we're at 7. I'm going to drive it in normal fleet mode now, which they have it tuned pretty chill for the fleet modes. But if you buy one personally, they give you a secret access to a sport mode, which unlocks the full motor power output of that situation. So we'll drive it normally of like a fleet situation, because a lot of fleet operators don't want their drivers ripping around. There is some creep torque applied as well. And at very low speeds on some hills, there's slight motor cogging, and you can feel it kind of chunk, 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 chunk. You can feel it in a Model 3 as well if you park it on a steep hill. But just from a gear reduction standpoint, I think they should go with a little bit more aggressive reduction for this application, just because of the weight that you can put in this thing. Now, the van we're driving is totally unloaded, and it's dead silent in here right now. I mean, just amazing when we compare it to some of the other build-outs that we've driven that have been quite loud, quite clunky, quite, underperforming. This, pretty slow in the fleet version, but ramps up the power as we gain speed. So here at 30 miles an hour, more and more and more. It's not slow, but it's not knock your socks off fast. And so I think it's more than enough to get out of your own way. But if I bought one of these and spent, again, 50, 60 grand converting it, I'd want the full Model 3 power. And so I'm going to ask you to put the camera away, just in case a fleet driver's watching this. They asked us not to show anyone, but you're going to hear the cool noise that happens when I do this. So, da-da-da-da-da-da. We are now in sport mode. So full power, and I can hear it just struggling for traction, slight bit of torque steer, and it's fast. Look at this thing freaking rip. It's so fast. It's literally a Model 3 performance drivetrain in an empty van right now. And again, with just that single motor, but it absolutely hauls ass, way more than it deserves to. Let's just zip through. So if you were to buy one of these and do, your own van life build that's electric, which I think this is the perfect van to do it on because it actually charges fast and actually has good range. They're even talking about maybe doing double battery packs and even faster charging and crazy things like this down the line. The possibilities are endless. Once you hack all the Tesla stuff and open it all up, you can do whatever. I mean, this is a legit serious package right here. So I don't know what else there is to tell you about it. It has pretty good regen, great acceleration. The steering feels fine. The braking system's all stock ProMaster, but you rarely have to use it because of regen. So here I'm just blending in a tiny bit of friction brakes to pull us to a stop. It all works. The AC is blowing ice cold, probably colder than even the combustion version would. The crazy part to me, this little tiny company based here in California, and they probably had a few software nerds reverse engineer and hack all the CAN systems and whatever on Model 3 and put it in a van like this, and it just works so much better than any conversion that I've driven. It's safer because you have we very rarely hear about major issues with Model 3 and Model Y breaking down or having thermal runaway events. Certainly they happen, but much less than some of the stories I've been hearing recently about people buying these converted vans from these, conversion companies. And they kind of sound like nightmares, most of them at least. So I feel really good about this. I'd love to run one and actually do some reliability testing and maybe have one for a few weeks and take it on a trip and enjoy that fast charging. Again, I wouldn't go for one with this big box in the back. Can we open this and show everyone what's going on back there? It's just an open, delivery truck basically. But these things have more payload than pretty much anyone else. I got to ask them the exact number. You can get them pretty beefy and they feel great. Having this limited slip diff on the front as well, I kind of want to try coming out of here. I'm going to nail it mid-corner and see if we get a lot of front-wheel drive wheel spin. Here we go, full send. None at all. I can feel a lot of things going on in the front wheel, but we did not spin any tires there, and I went flat mid-corner with all of that power. That limited slip diff really working hard to transfer the power perfectly. Now, again, most fleet operators aren't going to be driving these things in the full unlocked sport mode, but at least we are here. So gauges all work, AC systems all work. The power and the AC for a van conversion all come off of the main high voltage battery pack, which no one else is doing right now. Both that Lightning E-Motors Winnebago as well as the E-Transit Winnebago both have their own separate battery systems to run the house versus the chassis. And that to me seems like a waste. There's nothing exciting there. Having everything integrated into your main battery pack, that's really cool and next level. So that's what you can do here. Having the reliability of Tesla components is great. I still think it would be great if they could find a way to do brand new Tesla components. If you could buy a brand new battery pack and a brand new motor, I guess you could just bring a brand new Tesla to them and say, hey, put this in there. But the reliability of these things is just unmatched. They literally pull the motors apart, they put the diffs in, they're testing some things out. It's a work in progress. They're a new company. I mean, they've been around since 2018, 2019, but now it really feels real. They got products coming out. They got, again, almost 100 vans out. There's vans everywhere at the shop that they're converting right now. They have great buyers, great partners. This to me at least, is the most sustainable way to get an electric van, because right now there's so many Model 3s and Ys on the road that no one knows what to do with the batteries when they're crashed. Most DIY solar guys or stationary storage guys are using the older Model S bricks and packs, which are great and they're easier to work with. The Model 3 packs are these really long things, but whatever these guys are doing is really working, and it's an interesting take. The one major downside, we're on our way to an EA station, we're gonna go plug it in. The one major downside, by the way, is no credits. They don't qualify for any tax credits, any government incentives, and it's honestly because they're putting in a used drivetrain in the vehicle. If they could find a way to maybe source brand new driveline components from Tesla being a supplier, it's very possible they could qualify for more credits. But look at this, regen up almost to a stop right here at the end, blending in some friction brakes, working wonderfully. no complaints. Drives better, like from a low, power control standpoint than any other Tesla or any other converted van I've been in. They have changed the pedal mapping a little bit, so it's not as aggressive as like a Model 3 Performance. But we have to do a drag race between an empty one of these with the performance motor and like a Model 3 Standard Range Plus. I bet this is faster. At least it feels faster than a standard Model 3 to me. It's pretty crazy. So let's run over to EA, plug this thing in, see what happens, and then right after that, we'll head back to their shop where we will show you a couple different options of how you can spec them. Either just an open van. I want to show you one on the lift of how they mount the battery and everything. The battery's actually mounted backwards, which is really cool. So the penthouse is closer to the front, and makes sense because you have your high voltage connection running to a front motor primarily. And then we should show the RV conversion, as well as the refrigerated van, the freezer van. So let's go run to EA and plug this thing in. The battery's not preconditioned at all, but let's see what happens. We have now initiated the Electrify America charging station. We're going to plug this thing in. So has a regular CCS port that I showed you earlier in the video, just right up here. In we go. And again, charging up that Tesla pack. How cool is it to see a van build out an Electrify America charging station charging? This is epic. So initiating charging. There we go. It says welcome Kyle, Pass Plus membership. Yep. And contactors have clicked. We're at 37% state of charge right now. It's delivering electricity. We are charging at 90 kilowatts or so, which for a non-preconditioned pack at 37%, that's not the end of the world. And yeah, pretty sweet. Love to see that. How crazy is it though, just to be charging this thing here at an EA station? Love to see it. Well, pretty cool to see this thing charge again. Actually, as we continued the charging session, charging speeds ramped up a little bit, but the battery pack was cold. I wonder if there is a preconditioning option. We should ask them when we get back. Because that seems pretty necessary for long trips, is to bake in Tesla's preconditioning logic with their systems. I don't know if they have that or not. Certainly they could do it because they're using all of Tesla's thermal control. I just don't know if it's programmed. So now we are heading back to Maxwell. We're going to be turning left up here. Thank you, Alyssa, for the directions. And still just can't get over the low speed maneuvering, how smooth everything is. No weirdness. It's so much quieter from an electric motor sound standpoint. You cannot hear this motor, even though it's front wheel drive, when compared with other vehicles that we've driven that are on, transit chassis, for example. And the performance, look at this thing, full send, bye-bye. I mean, it's not slow. It's got to be the fastest van on the market. And it's got, tons of range, and it charges better. To me, it's all about the charging performance. I feel like so many of these companies over-engineer under-engineer their battery packs for fleet use, and they worry about longevity and cooling and thermal needs, and so they just make it charge slow because fleets don't need that. But there's definitely going to be some fleets out there who do, and especially when we talk about van life and travel and going places. Maxwell's working on a version that can go 300 miles on a fully kitted out van in like a real driving scenario that can charge at well over 200 kilowatts. If they can make that and do a really nice van RV build conversion, then we've reached electric van life era. And especially if the whole house and the solar and everything can be fully baked in, which it would be, we're kind of there. So I am so excited, at least to see new and interesting ideas come to electrification of vans and fleet vehicles, especially electric van life possibilities. So call me impressed, call me excited. I just can't believe how well everything works, truly. All perfect. And I drove the piss out of this thing today. It didn't care. No issues, no warnings, no faults, no overheating. Just absolutely full send nation here. It feels mint. Another full throttle for you. Full send. Look at this thing, absolutely motoring hard on the brakes now. I'm feeling a little ABS through the brake pedal. Love it. Let's run over here and see what else we can find. And so here's an example of one that's kitted out to be sort of van life and, you know, fully purple. Maxwell actually went far enough to make this light up purple back here just to give it a cool look. It's just to showcase this van as their prototype camper, but it's really cool to see how everything is integrated. First of all, 1.4 kilowatts of solar on the roof peak. And again, that charges through their own controller, the Model 3 battery pack down here. And if we take a look inside, this was a conversion that had been done outside of them. They're not converting these vans, but what they are doing is creating their own panel over here, which is really cool. So you can actually see the high voltage battery packs at 64% right here. You can see the solar charging. I guess they had it parked inside, or maybe that was nighttime and then the daytime came, and that's their solar production over a 24-hour period of time. So you can see right now we're doing about 500 watts of solar, which is really cool, and that's charging the main battery pack. Really nice conversion. I mean, thinking about all the extra space by removing the battery packs and freeing up some extra things, the extra space that this type of conversion would get you. Again, you can even option an extra AC and heater right up here that runs off of the Model 3 thermal control systems. So that's really great. You don't need to run separate power for all that stuff. That just runs off of the Model 3 compressor. And perhaps there's talk maybe of integrating the heat pump into that as well for a future version. But everything works well in here. Cool conversion. Again, love to see all this integration with that app. Could make the ultimate electric van life. I am in. And so taking a look over here at this particular van, I wanted to show you this one because it's got some really cool cooling capabilities inside of it. But this van actually came to them with over 200,000 miles on it, and it was sort of a budget build, if you will. It's got the standard range battery, but the big solar in here. And this is going to an organic farmer in Washington, I believe. But if you take a look in here, just absolutely frozen. It's so cold. And this whole unit actually shuts off when the door opens. It's programmed to turn back on when it closes. Again, uses the Model 3 cooling systems right in here, which is really sweet, tied into the high voltage battery pack. And it's just a great way to keep things cool, even in the hot summer. So we can close that up, and then you will actually hear the compressor spin up and feed this to be cold. There it goes, spinning up right now. I don't know if you can hear that. Spinning, we can hear fans kicking on. It's all the Model 3 noises. So you Tesla owners will be familiar with all those sounds. Really, really cool to see that, and love to see sort of a budget build on this one. Oh, the fans are ripping right now. That's awesome. You join me inside the workshop bay now, where we have a van up on a lift, and we're actually joined with Max. How's it going, sir?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. Can you show us this Model 3 motor first?
Sure.
Before we do anything?
Yeah.
What was your logic of going with, just briefly, the Tesla drivetrain? Where'd that come from?
We chose it because it's the best there is. If you're going to build something, if you're going to build an EV, do a conversion, you might as well pick the most efficient technology you can. And that's why we chose the Tesla Model 3 drive unit. It's the best motor on the market. It's integrated, really tight package, very light, very efficient, and also quite powerful.
And what are we looking at here? I can see some gears that are out. Are you making any adaptations to this, or what's the idea?
Yeah, this is an engineering motor that we have pulled apart. The gear set is pulled out, as well as some of the cooling components, the oil pump, the oil to glycol exchanger for the oil in the drive unit, as well as some of the different gears. There's three kind of separate gear sets in this drive unit. This is the differential in here, as well as the two stages of reduction that the motor goes through from the rotor output shaft to the half shaft outputs. We have this pulled apart because we like to offer some upgrades for our customers. So working on a gear train ratio change to offer higher torque, lower speed output for this particular drive unit. You don't need to be going 140 miles an hour in your cargo van. So perhaps something with a little bit more torque.
Although that would be cool, do some Nürburgring laps in the cargo van.
And you definitely could, maybe swap your motor out between laps to get the different performance options.
Right.
But we do that as well as a limited slip differential option. These are, of course, optional on all of our builds, but generally for the bigger vehicles, the heavier box truck type vehicles, as well as the campers, the limited slip differential and the gear train adjustment makes sense.
Yeah, after driving the van we were out in, the box truck, 100% recommend the limited slip, at least for that application. If you're going to be driving it hard or want the performance, that's the way to go. And what's going on over here? You have this 2500 up on the lift. What's the plan for this van?
Yeah, this is a camper van that a customer brought in to us. It's pre-converted. They've done build out on the inside themselves, and it's very nice. They use very high quality components.
Great. So this will be a full van life then, and it already is inside.
It is, yeah, and it will actually also be used for education. This guy works for a company called AY Instruments that's doing educational programs in Pittsburgh. So they're actually planning on using it both as a camper, but also a mobile classroom with integrated solar to help teach kids about how energy management in a van for van life works.
Wow, that's really cool.
So we've got the whole thing stripped. Everything's pulled out of it. The engine's removed, obviously. There's no fuel tank. There's no exhaust. All the internal combustion we got is gone. And it's basically ready to have its electric powertrain installed. So all of the drilling is done. Everything is mounted. Underneath the van, you can see you've got this nice kind of flat region where we've got some brackets installed. So these are the brackets that we've engineered and manufactured to adapt the battery pack to the ProMaster chassis. And everything fits real nice. You can kind of see the level that these sit at. This is the bottom of the pack, and it's pretty much in plane with some of the lowest points in the van. So you're not sacrificing a lot of ground clearance, and you get a really smooth slipstream underneath that battery.
Yeah, that's smart. It's probably actually more aerodynamic with the battery pack than without.
It definitely is. And we also do a front aero skirt underneath the formerly engine bay. So it's a much smoother profile than a normal ProMaster.
Now, are you finding most of your clients are going for the standard range battery or for the long range, or what's the split?
The majority of folks choose the long range. The standard range works well for folks that have a good understanding of their operation. So mostly fleets that have, daily route, and they want to save some money. They're more cost sensitive.
Right, makes sense. But definitely for van life, go long range, go fast charging, and get the range option. What kind of range are you finding people are getting in their non, box trucks variants, just the flat van, something like this?
Yeah, standard van, if you're doing a lot of highway driving, you'll be in the 140 to 150 range, driving with the flow of traffic, 65 miles an hour. Around town, we routinely see people get 170, 180. It really depends on how fast you're going. That's kind of the biggest factor.
Certainly. So, yeah, more than weight, of course.
More than weight. Yeah, absolutely.
That is very neat. But that's good range. That's like right out there with the best vans you can buy on the market today.
Pretty much. And, charging a lot faster than anything else. These things will just absolutely suck in the juice if you can find the right CCS charger. So
that's right.
It's a huge difference. Your road trip is largely limited by charging time at a point, right? So you want to be able to get back on the road as fast as you can.
Totally. Well, thanks so much for letting me drive the van and show us what's going on underneath.
Absolutely. You're very welcome.
Well, I'm leaving you now from touring all of Maxwell, and the vans are just so cool. I love the idea, not only that it's fully Tesla powered, proven drivetrain that just works and rips. You also get the full integration of powering your house all off the high voltage battery pack. They have their own proprietary DC to DC. They also have an inverter as well, so you can do 240 volt power, 120 volt power to run everything. Really smart stuff. And I think it definitely feels early days for this company, but like this thing's got some legs. If they can figure out the supply, they're like, look, we can get unlimited batteries. Like the people are crashing these cars left and right. So it sounds like that's not much of a problem. The reliability's been great, but again, only 70 or 80 vans out there. So time will tell when we start seeing some more out in the wild. And it sounds like some big updates are coming for 2023. More functions, integrating Tesla's heat pump, perhaps that dual battery pack stuff. We'll have to see what they can get around to. But I think we're going to really start seeing some electric van life converted by these guys that like you could go and purchase. So I'm totally into it. Can't wait to see what you guys think in the comments. And I'm just like really impressed with everything I saw today. It's small scale. We're not talking huge mass manufacturing, but all the hardware is there, and that's what matters to me. And the software integration is amazing. So there you go. Thanks for watching another Out of Spec Reviews video. Leaving you now from Maxwell Vehicles. See you on another one soon. Bye-bye.